A narcissist, often deeply invested in maintaining their inflated sense of self, thrives on admiration, power, and validation. However, super empaths, individuals with a heightened sense of empathy and emotional intelligence, have the rare ability to sense when their energy is being drained, manipulated, or abused. These super empaths are silent destroyers of the narcissist's ego. The conflict between these two types of personalities is often subtle but profound. Over time, a super empath's quiet responses and restrained reactions start eroding the narcissist's sense of superiority, creating an internal collapse for the narcissist, even if outwardly they remain unaware of what is truly happening. One of the most noticeable ways a super empath silently disrupts the narcissist's ego is through their ability to maintain emotional control. Narcissists feed off others' emotional responses, often using them to manipulate or elevate themselves. Whether it's causing chaos, provoking reactions, or controlling situations, narcissists thrive when they can get people to feel insecure, angry, or anxious. The super empath, however, remains calm and composed. Instead of reacting emotionally, they observe and respond thoughtfully. The narcissist's attempts to provoke emotional reactions fall flat, and this lack of emotional volatility frustrates the narcissist, who becomes disoriented. They can no longer feed off the empath's emotional state, which disrupts their power dynamic. The next sign that a super empath is silently eroding a narcissist's ego is their ability to expose contradictions in the narcissist's behavior. Narcissists tend to hold an inflated sense of self-importance, and part of maintaining this illusion is presenting themselves as flawless and omnipotent. A super empath, with their acute awareness of emotions and subtle cues, is able to see through these facades. They may not directly challenge the narcissist, but they are often keen observers of the gaps between what the narcissist says and does. When the super empath quietly points out these contradictions, it disrupts the narcissist's perception of themselves, causing self-doubt to creep in. The narcissist can't maintain their carefully constructed self-image when someone is quietly noticing the inconsistencies. They may not vocalize their insecurity, but it begins to gnaw at them. Another significant sign is the super empath's ability to deny the narcissist their supply of admiration. Narcissists depend on external validation to uphold their self-worth. They need admiration, praise, and attention to keep their egos inflated. The super empath, however, can intuitively recognize when admiration is being demanded rather than freely given. Instead of offering praise or flattery, the super empath withholds this validation, forcing the narcissist to rely on their own fragile self-esteem. The narcissist, accustomed to being the center of attention, becomes rattled when they no longer receive the constant admiration they need to feel secure. They might try to reclaim that attention through more extreme behaviors, but deep down, they begin to realize that the super empath is no longer a willing participant in their emotional manipulation. The fourth sign involves the super empath's ability to detach emotionally without giving the narcissist the satisfaction of a reaction. Narcissists often create a roller coaster of emotional highs and lows, feeding off the chaos they generate. They enjoy being the emotional center of others' lives, whether by instigating drama or playing the victim. A super empath, however, is capable of withdrawing from the emotional turmoil without engaging. They may stop responding to the narcissist's provocations or demands for attention, allowing the narcissist to marinate in their own emotional chaos. This silence can be unsettling for the narcissist, who craves the emotional responses they once received. The empath's lack of reaction creates a void that chips away at the narcissist's ego, as they begin to feel irrelevant and unimportant in the empath's world. The fifth sign is the super empath's ability to maintain boundaries, which is something the narcissist cannot understand or tolerate. Narcissists often push the boundaries of others, demanding attention, resources, and emotional investment without regard for the needs of the other person. Super empaths, however, are masters of healthy boundaries. They know when to step back and refuse to give more than they are willing to offer. When the narcissist's demands are met with firm but gentle limits, it confuses and frustrates them. The narcissist, who thrives on bending others to their will, finds it impossible to manipulate someone who clearly defines their own emotional and psychological space. This leads to a feeling of powerlessness on the part of the narcissist, and over time, their ego begins to feel smaller, as the empath does not allow them to invade their personal space. The sixth sign is the super empath's ability to remain compassionate but not overly accommodating. Narcissists often expect others to accommodate their needs at the expense of their own, disregarding the well-being of those around them. Super empaths, however, are kind and compassionate, but they know that offering too much emotional energy to a narcissist is detrimental to their own mental and emotional health. While they might offer empathy, the super empath does not sacrifice themselves in the process. They may listen to the narcissist's complaints or troubles, but they will not take on the narcissist's burdens as their own. This selective compassion chips away at the narcissist's sense of control, as they can no longer rely on the super empath to be an endless source of emotional labor. The narcissist, who is accustomed to taking without giving, becomes frustrated by the empath's balanced approach to kindness. The seventh and final sign that a super empath is silently destroying a narcissist's ego is the empath's ability to rise above drama and manipulation. Narcissists are often master manipulators, weaving intricate webs of lies, gaslighting, and emotional coercion to control others. A super empath, however, is able to rise above these manipulative tactics. They recognize the narcissist's games and, instead of engaging with them, they remain centered in their own truth. The narcissist may try to stir up conflict or manipulate the super empath, but the empath's clarity and sense of self remain unshaken. This ability to transcend the narcissist's attempts to control the narrative serves as a silent dismantling of their ego. Over time, the narcissist realizes that their usual tactics no longer work, and they are left powerless and exposed. In the end, the narcissist's ego begins to crumble not because the super empath actively seeks to destroy them, but because the empath's silent resistance to manipulation and their refusal to engage in the narcissist's games naturally strips away the narcissist's power. The narcissist's ego is built on the constant need for validation, control, and manipulation, and when these elements are systematically denied by the super empath, the foundation of their self-image begins to erode. The narcissist may never fully recognize what is happening, but the super empath's silent strength and emotional intelligence gradually lead to their emotional collapse. The super empath does not have to engage in confrontation or direct attack. Instead, their quiet resistance, emotional wisdom, and ability to set boundaries serve as a subtle yet powerful force that dismantles the narcissist's carefully constructed illusion of superiority. As the narcissist's sense of self-worth begins to disintegrate, they are left with nothing but their own emptiness, unable to regain the validation and control they once held so dear. It is in this quiet destruction of the ego that the super empath triumphs. A super empath has a unique ability to deeply connect with others, often sensing and feeling emotions in ways that most people cannot comprehend. This heightened sensitivity allows them to understand others' needs, emotions, and desires, often leading them to be incredibly compassionate and caring. However, when this gift is used in the presence of a narcissist, it can result in a very delicate dynamic. Narcissists, who thrive on attention, control, and admiration, can feel an intense threat when a super empath comes into the picture. In fact, there are certain signs that indicate a super empath is breaking down a narcissist's confidence without even consciously trying. The first sign is a subtle shift in the narcissist's behavior. Narcissists often thrive on constant validation, and the super empath's mere presence can disrupt this. Super empaths, by nature, tend to offer empathy and understanding, but they don't fall for the narcissist's charm and manipulation. They see through the mask that the narcissist presents to the world. As the narcissist begins to notice that their usual tactics of control and flattery are not working, they may start becoming frustrated, irritated, or defensive. This frustration is not always visible, but a keen observer might notice a certain level of discomfort in the narcissist when they realize their usual tactics of gaining admiration are failing. Another sign is when the narcissist begins to experience feelings of insecurity. The super empath's ability to recognize and challenge the narcissist's false self-image can rattle their confidence. Narcissists often construct an inflated sense of self-worth, and when someone doesn't offer the expected admiration or validation, they may start to question their own sense of importance. A super empath, simply by being authentic and not buying into the narcissist's inflated self-perception, forces them to face the uncomfortable reality that their facade isn't as solid as they believe. A third sign occurs when the narcissist attempts to gaslight the super empath. Narcissists often rely on gaslighting, manipulating someone into doubting their own perception of reality, in order to maintain control. However, super empaths are highly attuned to their own feelings and instincts. They are often so in touch with themselves that they cannot easily be manipulated or made to question their own perceptions. When a narcissist attempts to distort the truth or manipulate the super empath's emotions, the empath's ability to stand firm in their truth exposes the narcissist's tactics. This can cause the narcissist to feel unmoored, as they rely heavily on their ability to distort reality for others. The fourth sign is when the narcissist becomes excessively critical. Narcissists need to maintain a sense of superiority, and when they encounter someone who doesn't give them the attention they crave, they may attempt to tear that person down. If a super empath isn't feeding into the narcissist's need for constant admiration, the narcissist might start criticizing them, attacking their character, or belittling their accomplishments. This is an attempt to regain control and restore their sense of power, but it also indicates that the narcissist feels threatened by the empath's emotional resilience. A fifth sign is the narcissist's increased isolation. Narcissists often surround themselves with people who flatter and reinforce their inflated self-image. However, when a super empath enters the picture, this dynamic can shift. The super empath's ability to connect with others on a deeper, more authentic level can make the narcissist feel isolated or disconnected. They may notice that others are not as eager to praise them or give them attention when the empath is around. This feeling of being out of the spotlight can cause the narcissist to withdraw, either by distancing themselves from the super empath or from the people who are offering them genuine connection. The sixth sign involves the narcissist's emotional outbursts or tantrums. When a narcissist's confidence is being broken down, they may react in extreme ways. They may throw tantrums, lash out, or even become passive-aggressive. This behavior is a direct result of their inability to maintain the illusion of control or admiration. A super empath, by simply being themselves, can trigger these emotional outbursts because the narcissist's tactics are not working. In some cases, these outbursts may be attempts to regain control over the empath, but they only serve to further expose the narcissist's insecurity. The seventh and final sign is when the narcissist's mask starts to slip. Narcissists are notorious for hiding their true selves behind a carefully constructed image. They want to be seen as perfect, admirable, and superior. However, when a super empath is present, the narcissist's need for validation can create cracks in this facade. The empath's ability to remain unaffected by the narcissist's need for admiration can cause the narcissist to expose their true feelings of inadequacy, fear, or self-loathing. In some cases, the narcissist may even show vulnerability, which is something they rarely allow others to see. In conclusion, the relationship between a super empath and a narcissist is often fraught with tension. The super empath, through their natural abilities of understanding and emotional insight, can unintentionally dismantle the narcissist's carefully constructed world. The narcissist's confidence is often broken in subtle, behind-the-scenes ways, manifesting in frustration, insecurity, and emotional turmoil. The super empath does not need to actively confront or challenge the narcissist. Their very presence and emotional strength are enough to cause the narcissist's facade to falter. Ultimately, this interaction can leave the narcissist questioning their own identity and the foundations of their self-worth.